So BSides and stuff. This is gonna be quick. Just I'm psyched to be here. Apparently there is more to Charlotte than the walk from Terminal D to Terminal E, which is normally what I'm doing. From the little puddle jumpers to the real airplanes and vice versa. But so that's kind of cool, yeah. But here we are. But first. Mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. Oh, child, when you shake that thing, gonna make you burn, gonna make you sting. So that was Steven Seagull's. They're a Finnish band. You should see their videos. They're beautifully produced videos on YouTube. If you haven't seen them, they're amazing. Their video for Born to Be Wild is stunning. You're welcome. Moving on. You are here, or here, there, whatever, right? Which is awesome. It's great that this event has been revived. Thanks, folks. But one of the things to keep in mind is that you're here, but you're also here and part of this amazing movement of events. This map is pretty much up to date. The blue pins have held the B-sides before. The green pins are first time ones coming up. Question marks are maybes. The handful that have stars are 10th or upcoming 10th events. A handful of events have already had 10. Vegas has had 11. But more importantly, you're part of all of this. A bit over 10 years ago, a few of us were kicking around ideas about what could be better about conferences, and then people complained about their talks being turned down, and we had a conversation, and you know, the big cons just get too many talks. But we saw some that were like interesting, but maybe they weren't going to fill a room at Black Hat or DEF CON because they need to put a lot of seats, you know, a lot of butts in seats. I'm like, well, that's too bad. There ought to be a place for these. There ought to be a place for people to develop their skills. There ought to be a place for people to hear interesting ideas that are maybe interesting to dozens of people, but not thousands. And so we did a one-off event in July of 2009, and it turns out maybe it wasn't a one-off. This is B-Sides event 552 globally since that first one in July of 2009. Cardiff, Wales. I would say UK, but we know where Brexit's going to take them, so Wales going to soon. Cardiff, Wales turns from green to blue today. They've got a 5-hour time zone head start, so they're well into their conference. That's their first. So this is event 552. So far, 163 cities in 50 countries, depending on whether we count Scotland and Northern Ireland. Again, back to that. It keeps us from focusing on our own. There have been 78 events thus far this year and 32 more scheduled. That's changed in the few hours since I finished this deck 2 days ago, and there are 34 more scheduled for the year. 112 events this year. 15 cities scheduled to hold their first ones. And it's because, as Jenny said, of everyone. It's because of the organizers, it's because of the volunteers, it's because of those of you that are here to participate, whether it's participating by being part of the community, it's sponsors, speakers, everybody. It takes everyone to do this. And it's just amazing. It's like, I don't know. How did this happen? I speak to people, I speak to like 60 or so teams a year that want to do an event, and about a third of them happen. And so we bring events and mentor events, and the local teams run it all. I mean, this is the B-Sides Charlotte's team's event. You get a connection to an amazing community, but they do all the hard work. But anyway, you know, let's dig into some deep thoughts. I want to talk about the history of computer security just for a couple of minutes and give you some thoughts, things to think about. So, a very complicated timeline, we'll dig into that. Somewhere in the middle of that timeline, the NSA decided that they would have security awareness posters. Yes, that's NSA. They released this last year. There's a set of 135 or so of them available as a PDF if you ask the internet or ping me and I can help you. Most of them are boring. Some of them are bizarre, and more than a few are more than slightly creepy. You'll be surprised to hear that, right? Yeah. They are propaganda posters for the inside of the NSA. So anyway, history of computer security. I developed this complex timeline. Hopefully I won't lose anybody with this. But I'm not going to go, I can, this obviously I can go for hours on, but there's some interesting things. Back then, computers were rare, huge, and expensive, and the people that operated them were treated as clerical, even the guys, believe it or not. And they were plentiful and cheap, relatively speaking. Now, computers are free. They're effectively free. That's why there's a computer with an OS in everything. If you bought light bulbs that have web servers in them, because that's a brilliant idea. What could possibly go wrong? Right? It's cheaper to put a full computer and a full stack and a full set of vulnerabilities and exposures in every single thing you own. Luckily nobody abuses that, either for criminal purposes or just to sell us down the river because privacy is dumb. What else? I don't know. At that end, I used to be an auto mechanic. At this end, apparently I'm not anymore. The one thing I want you to think about, though, is the stuff that happened and the more stuff is why we have an industry to a large extent. Back in the old days, computers were insecure, but they weren't that well connected, and they could have been secured, right? I mean, single user, single process stuff. We started down that path with things like BBN 10X, who, like, I'm the only one here old enough to know that other than a historian, but, you know, 10X was going to be really secure, and they made some of the dumbest mistakes you can imagine. If you're really into that thing, you know, I'll give you some papers to dig into, but what happened in the middle? Well, we started connecting everything. That was a good idea. Turns out it had some baggage. Computers became commoditized, they became consumerized and then commoditized. And just doing that with the hardware opened up a lot of attack surface once we connected everything. But then we consumerized and commoditized software. And that was another step in a direction that gives us job security. And then the giant step was that we consumerized and commoditized the creation of software so that any idiot can be a web developer and they still call themselves web people even though they're plugging into the database of everything that runs your entire organization. So I just do web stuff. Yeah, does your web stuff like touch everything that runs our enterprise and has all of our customer data on it? Well, yeah, okay, you have to act like a developer. So that's where we are now. This end, the people, if you believe the hype, we're all well paid and there are millions, insufficient number of us in the order of millions. If you are a little more realistic, you're probably well paid and have a secure job if you have the exact match of bulleted checklist bullshit for your job, and you stay up to date. There is a huge skills gap. I like to talk about this, and as soon as we solve that skills gap in HR and recruiting, this will get a lot better. So, hey, here's a thing that everybody needs to do today. Anybody here, like this, their first conference, first BSides, first event? Whoa. All right, that's fantastic. And because I'm lazy, it was leg day the other day, so I'm just gonna go this far. Hey, my name's Jack. Matthew, it's great to meet you. I used to know stuff, I don't anymore. But I know people. Now I'm bad with, I used to be bad with names, then I got old, and so I got worse. But eventually I'll remember their names. So if you ever need to find folks, or just want to bounce an idea off somebody, or just want to vent because your boss is an idiot, you know, reach out, seriously. And welcome to the community. Welcome to BSides and to the community for everyone who's first time event. Because this is what this is about. This is what we can do here is we can meet people, we can make connections, we can make a difference. Forgive me for being idealistic, we can change lives. It's a thing that I believe in and a lot of other people. And DerbyCon did it, and Dave does it, and a whole bunch of other people in this room do it. Because we're in this together, like it or not, and let's act like it. And with that, that's not the end, that's the beginning.